Hello, we want to welcome you to our show today, the Sunnyside Community Voice, coming out of the Sunnyside community area here in our city. This is a show that's designed to give our community, to speak with our community on various issues. And today we have with us, who has been with us before, our County Judge Ed Emmett, who sits here to my right. And then we have our CEO and President, Pastor James Nash, here on my left. And today we're just going to have just a good spirited conversation. Judge Ed Emmett was with us before, briefly, for doing our Mental Health Month. And we wanted him to come back because his visit was slightly short. We wanted to get him back on the show. And today we're going to let him come to you in his own way, telling you about some issues that may affect our community, may affect the city. So we want to welcome you with us, Judge.
It's good to be back.
We're so glad to have you back with us. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Now I'm just going to let you speak to your audience and let them know what you would like to talk about today.
Well, thank you very much, Shirley and Reverend Nash. Always good to be with you. You know, most people are very familiar with what the city does, City of Houston. The county governments, that's something they don't necessarily relate to. And of course, the Sunnyside community, we've had Commissioner El Franco Lee down there for a long time. Great public servant. He and I served together in the legislature, so a lot of his programs people are aware of. But if I could, let me just talk about Harris County.
Sure.
You know, 4 million people live in Harris County. And if you divide them up, 500,000 live inside Loop 610. 1.5 million live between Loop 610 and Beltway 8. And then 2 million people live outside Beltway 8.
Wow.
And a whole lot of that's outside of the city of Houston. And when we talk about things that the county does, of course, people are aware that the county is responsible for roads. We have the toll road system. Nobody likes paying tolls, but you know, you'd rather have a toll road than no road at all.
Yes.
And then I thought about that driving on the South Belt just yesterday, as a matter of fact. You're kind of glad that it's there. And you have parks, and of course Tom Bass Park, a lot of major parks are around. But beyond that, the changing demographics of the county. I graduated from Bel Air High School in 1967, long time ago, and Rice in 1971, and I've seen the whole county change so much.
Quite a bit.
You know, you used to be able to say, well, this is, and we didn't use the term indigent back then. You said this is where poor people live. And the county's so big. They're scattered all over. So one of the things that is high on our agenda, of course, is health care. Everybody needs to have access to quality health care.
Exactly.
And we have the Harris County Hospital District, which was created after the old Jeff Davis Charity Hospital was found wanting. And Hospital District's done a good job, been a lot of great progress there. But now it's time to move to the next level. You know, people shouldn't have to come to the emergency room to get care.
Exactly.
And so what a lot of us are beginning to push at the county level is the idea of neighborhood clinics. And there are a lot of them out there already that are the federally qualified health clinics and some of the private clinics, some for profit, some not for profit. But if we can create clinics in the neighborhoods so that people have a medical home. And they don't come to the emergency room for treatment. And some people say, well, that's going to cost a lot of money. No, in fact, that saves a lot of money.
That's it.
Because, emergency room care is the most expensive care you can possibly have. And while it's high quality, it's not as good as preventive care. So a lot of what I think you're going to start seeing at the county level will be a regional approach involving neighboring counties too, because let's face it, if you live across the county line and you're sick, are you going to say, well, I'm going to go here? No, you're going to go to the nearest place you can get help.
The nearest place I can get to get some help.
So I would urge the community to watch closely and participate. Don't be afraid. You know, some people, they think, well, if I go to a clinic, then somebody's going to want to count this or count. No, don't worry about that. We need to make sure pandemics don't break out in our community.
Pastor?
You know, Judge, again, thank you for coming back on the show. And I know you have your hand filled. Now, I did not understand all that you do as a county judge, and of course you enlightened us the last time you were here. Of course, now I've been more familiar with what you do. But what you just said about these clinics within the community, man, that would be awesome. We could do that because you got so many people within our communities that are sick and can't afford to go to the doctor and don't have access to getting to the doctor. And I think pockets, like you said, of clinics, and I think that's something really need to be worked on. When we get our council people, our leaders together, I really want to share that with them because it is important that we do that. It bothers me to see kids that can't get treated because the parents, they got too far to go and don't have the finances necessarily. So it's a crunch, really, also about the finance that people are able to get their loved one to the hospital and get the treatment that they need. And it's according to what kind of treatment needed, it can get expensive. So you might want to share that with us, you know.
Well, it is, but the best health care is before you're sick.
Preventative.
And you're mentioning kids, young people. You know, as the grandparent for the 8th time just this week, I can talk about young people a little bit.
Congratulations.
I had to get in a plug there for my youngest daughter who just had a baby. But we all know that kids are resilient. But if you can get them in preventive programs, I'll give you an example. Immunizations.
Yes.
There's an organization here in town called the Immunization Partnership. And believe it or not, there are folks in Texas right now who are discouraging parents from getting their kids immunized because there have been some bogus studies overseas, and we can't let that happen. We've got to make sure these children get their immunizations so that they don't get sick, and we've had too many tragedies from people who didn't. So that's one, and that's on the physical health side. We talked about mental health the last time I was here.
Yes.
You know, nobody likes to think about it, but if you can have early screening, some of these children that have minor mental issues, if you catch them early and you give them the proper treatment, proper medication, get them in to see the right people, then they don't end up in the criminal justice system or worse later on.
Yep. I'm glad to hear you say preventative is the best way to go, because if we could have clinics where if people would you know, go get your regular screenings, get your blood pressure checked, get your sugar checked. Those are things that affect us a lot. And if you've got a place where they can go to at least get the tests done and get the checkups done, then down the line, you know, I know I got this problem. I'm already in. The problem doesn't become so big. But we have a tendency that if I'm feeling okay,
that's right.
If I'm feeling fine and nothing's hurting me, why do I need to go to a doctor? But again, what you just said, it's the preventative part. Just because you're feeling fine now, tomorrow you may not be feeling fine. You know?
Just think in our own vicinity here, we've had 2 or 3 or even more really good young athletes.
Exactly.
Just keel over and die tragically.
Preventative.
Whereas if somebody had run a test when they were 12 years old, they would have found it out. Now, that boy might not have ended up playing football in high school, but he'd still be alive.
Exactly.
And I have to look back to what's the real loss? I mean, beyond the emotional loss, those are productive citizens. You don't know what somebody at 18 years old might have accomplished in their life if they'd lived. So it's our job to make sure they live.
Yeah. So thinking in that lines and getting those areas set up, that really would be that would be so good for some of the communities, and especially some of the communities that are considered low to moderate income, communities where you have it. I know in the Sunnyside area they do have the Sunnyside multi-service center. They do immunizations there, and I think from our end, what we need to do is, in like the clergy and their churches, really pump up getting your kids. Go get your kids immunized. Get these tests done. There is a group out there that they do screening. A lot of people will say, "Why should I spend $135 to go and have my blood pressure checked and all these tests done?" But I worked at Bayshore Hospital, and we saw so many people that went through those screenings that we caught them early. Right. We caught they had plaque in their carotids, they had clots in their legs. They were caught early just because they went to a screening. So those screening things are just really good for us. I'm going to switch the subject just a little bit here because it's during hurricane time.
Okay.
and we've been blessed so far. We've been blessed so far. Do we have programs? Programs out there set up specifically for hurricane season?
No, absolutely. Harris County has an Office of Emergency Management that year-round it just prepares for emergencies.
Okay.
And I haven't talked about hurricanes for a little while.
Yes.
We've managed to skip 3 years.
Yes.
And I'll keep my fingers crossed. I think we're through this year pretty well too.
Oh, good.
We've had the first cool front, and typically that lets us off the hook. But there are other kinds of emergencies that have come up now.
Okay.
Wildfires, for example.
Right.
Who could have seen that one coming?
Right.
And so I guess what we have to remind people of, you get ready for hurricane season, get ready for any emergency. Every household really ought to have a plan for what they do in case of an emergency.
Okay.
If you have medicines, make yourself a kit that's got all your necessary medicines and vital papers, so that if you have to pick it up and go, you can do that, because some of these wildfires hit, suburban neighborhoods.
Yeah. And it's funny you said that, just because
his family.
Most of my family lives in outside of Bastrop, a little place called Cedar Creek.
Oh yeah.
They all had to vacate, and we was apprehensive because we could not get in touch with them. And finally, they called us, and it made us feel a little better. They didn't lose anything, but it's around, I think it's about 1,700 homes, I think, burned, something like that. That's tragic.
It is.
Now, and what's worse is that how do these fires start? Nobody can, that's strange to me.
Well, that one I just heard today, that fire started from a tree, a dead tree falling on an electric line that then sparked.
Wow.
So, and
especially with our dry season, the way it's
been, can start in any way possible. But one of the other concerns that I have is, as county judge, you ask, what do I do? I chair the juvenile board.
Okay.
And when I came into this job, the juvenile detention center downtown was chock full every night. 250 is maximum we can have. And we had a bond issue. Best thing happened to me was that bond issue failed. Right. Because then we said, okay, we can't build a new juvenile facility, so what do we do? The county and the juvenile board and the juvenile judges, with some assistance from Houston Ministers Against Crime, got with the Annie Casey Foundation, and we came up with a Juvenile Detention Alternatives Initiative. So on any given night, we seldom have more than 150 anymore. Part of that, we had a new district attorney and a new sheriff, a new county judge, different political parties, different philosophy, but everybody looked up and said, why are we incarcerating so many kids? And I started using the phrase, we were taking bad kids and turning them into good criminals. And
yeah, you're right.
You're right.
And there's too much of that.
Yeah.
And so now, the next step, though, is we've done our part. The next step is for the community to start saying, okay, what are the behavior patterns that we, the community, can identify and say, young man or young woman, you don't do that.
That's good.
And
I really like that.
So anything we can help with that.
Oh, wow.
But that's more a community activity.
Agree.
So.
You've lightened the load on how many you have. Now we've got to lighten the load that you don't get any more at all, that you don't get them
Well,
at
you
all.
know,
We need to work on stopping some of it as a community.
Well, I'm sure that, you know, the Reverend was different, but most of us misbehaved when we were young.
Of course. No, I don't live on that.
You admit to that too? Oh, okay.
I admit to that.
And, you know, but I grew up in a rural area where whatever I did, nobody saw, so I didn't get caught doing a lot of stuff. But today, okay, 12-year-old gets caught doing something he shouldn't do. He needs to be disciplined,
Yes.
Right.
but his life doesn't need to be ruined.